Hi friends, today we are going to study about John Stuart Mill's ideas on democracy. He judged representative democracy on the basis of how far it promotes the good management of the affairs of the society by means of the existing faculties, moral, intellectual and active of its various members and by improving those faculties. So if we talk about the source of Mill's ideas on democracy. Mill actually wrote his views of democracy in his book Representative Government in 1861. And if we talk about the influence on John Stuart Mill for his ideas on democracy, so we can see influence of Greek thinkers like Aristotle, and we can also see similarity in Mill's ideas and Machiavelli on democracy and republic. So Mill actually began his representative government by stating that we can only decide which is the best form of government by examining which form of government fulfills most adequately the purposes of government. So for Mill, the point of having a government was that it performs two main functions. Number one, it must use the existing qualities and skills of the citizens to best serve their interests. And number second, it must improve the moral, intellectual, and active qualities of these citizens. Of course, a despotic government may be able to fulfill the first purpose, but it will fail in the second. Only a representative government is able to fulfill these two functions. So now the question arises that how does a representative government perform this function of ensuring that the common interest of society is being furthered instead of the partial and sinister interest of some group or class? So how does a representative government perform this very function? So according to Mill, number first is extensive political participation through voting. So Mill actually wanted extensive political participation. Participation in the political process must be as extensive as possible so that every individual has a say in controlling the government and thus protecting her or his interests. It's on this basis that actually Mill demanded the right to vote for women. He advocated the extension of the suffrage to cover everyone. He wanted everyone to vote and participate in the political process, but he exempted certain people from having right to vote or suffrage or participating in the political process. For example, the people who could not read and write, who did not pay taxes, or were on parish relief, that is public welfare, or were legal bankrupts and moral deviants like habitual drunkards. Mill exempted all of these people from voting or participating in the political process. Number second, proportional representation. As we know, there are various systems of voting. One of them is territorial representation, which is FPTP, which is also used in India for elections in Lok Sabha or state legislative assemblies, whereas proportional representation is used while electing members of the legislative councils or while electing the president. So proportional representation, the system of voting, was supported by John Stuart Mill. So Mill actually supported this proportional representation, also known as Hare's system. In other words, the single transferable vote system is also a form of proportional representation, and it was developed by Thomas Hare, who was an English sociologist. And this single transferable vote system is mainly useful in multi-member constituency, and where every member has one vote and has to vote by giving preferences in order to get selected. A candidate has to secure a quota. So Mill actually supported this Hare system or system of proportional representation or single transferable vote for electing deputies to parliament. under that current system, Mill pointed out minorities were underrepresented. And since they too needed to protect their interests, that's why Mill actually thought another electoral mechanism should be found to ensure their representation. That's why he supported proportional representation. Number third, plural voting. So what does Mill actually mean by plural voting? Plural voting meant that with everyone having at least one vote, some individuals would have more than one vote because they were, for example, more educated. So awarding at the bottom one additional vote to a skilled laborer and two to a foreman, and at the top as many as five to professional men, writers and artists, public functionaries, university graduates, and members of learned societies. So he supported for multiple votes for an individual who was better enough than everybody else. Number fourth, representative assembly. Mill said that this body, that is representative assembly, must be a committee of grievances and a congress of opinions. Every opinion existing in the nation should find a voice here. That is how every group's interests have a better chance of being protected. And at the same time, Mill argued that this body was suited neither for the business of legislation nor of administration. So he didn't want representative assembly to perform the function of either legislation or of administration. Like usually, like in India, we have legislatures and their main function is legislation. But for Mill, a representative assembly should not perform the task of legislation or administration. Number fifth, legislation and administration. So who would perform then the task of this legislation and administration? According to Mill, legislation was to be framed by a codification commission made up of few competent legal experts who could frame laws. And administration should be in the hands of the bureaucracy, an institution characterized by instrumental competence, that is the ability to find the most efficient means to fulfill given goals. So the administration was to be carried out by administrators or bureaucrats who were more efficient and who were very instrumental and who could find most efficient means to fulfill given goals. So these were the ideas of John Stuart Mill for ensuring the common interest of societies being furthered instead of the partial and sinister interest of some group or class. Number second question arises that how can a government make the citizens intellectually and morally better? How can a government perform this very function? Number first, open ballot. So Mill suggested open ballot. He wanted to replace the secret ballot with open voting, that is, everyone must know how one has voted. In India, whenever we vote it secretly. We don't reveal it to people around us. But Mill suggested open ballot. And for Mill, the franchise was not one's right in the sense of, for example, the right to property, which implies that one can dispose of one's property in any arbitrary manner. The franchise is a trust or a public duty, and one must cast one's vote for that candidate whose policies seem to best further the common interest. So it is the need to justify one's vote to others that makes the vote an instrument of one's intellectual and moral growth. Whenever we vote openly, we have to justify it to others that why we voted for a person, namely A. So why we voted for him. And it is because of this justification which allows us to grow intellectually and morally. Since we have to justify it to others, that's what develops us morally and intellectually. Otherwise, one would use one's vote arbitrarily, voting, for instance, for somebody, say A, because of the color of his eyes, because of the religion he belongs to, because of the caste he belongs to. etc., etc. So everyone must have the franchise, but it must be open according to Mill. This is how Mill placed his idea of open ballot. Number second, according to Mill, the citizens develop their capabilities by being able to participate in government minimally by casting their vote and also by actually taking decisions in local government. So citizens develop themselves not only by voting but by also taking decisions in local government. So here are these two ways by which the citizens develop intellectually and morally. Because Mill was concerned about democracy turning into mobocracy, which is the tyranny of majority. It was a term which was given by Alex de Tocqueville in his book Democracy in America. So that's why actually Mill introduced the above aristocratic elements in democracy, and thus he is also known as a reluctant democrat. He was in favor of democracy, but a democracy with all of these reforms. He was in favor of this type of democracy with these aristocratic elements. That's why Mill is also known as reluctant democrat. So moving on, Mill's ideas on democracy in colonies. For colonies, actually Mill preferred benevolent despotism. From Mill's point of view, there are some essential prerequisites for introducing democracy. We can't introduce democracy anywhere, anytime. Democracy can't be treated as a free gift. We have achieved democracy after long struggle, and it can't be introduced anywhere, anytime. Democracy requires A. Commitment of people towards democracy, B. Civic culture, C. Literacy, and better quality of life. So these are the prerequisites for introducing democracy. Mill is actually concerned with future of democracy. He doesn't want anything wrong happen to democracy. Hence, he is reluctant to introduce democracy in societies which lack essential prerequisites. As far as India and China are concerned, of course they were once great civilizations, but not at present time. There's a decline of reason and dominance of superstition. India is also known as noisy democracy. A person is not under the rule of law but under rule of money, muscle, media. So these are three major problems in our democracy today. But if Mill is a reluctant democrat, Pandit Nehru is a passionate democrat. For Pandit Nehru, people can't come to democracy, democracy to be brought at the doorsteps of people. For Mill, democracy is an end. For Pandit Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi, democracy is a means to an end.